And weekend one, zero, or whatever you want to call it in college football is done.
Yeah, I think that the things I took away from the obviously the bigger games were USC and Notre Dame. Those are the teams that are right now thought to be college football playoff contenders. Notre Dame, the things that they're going to love about Sam Hartman, they're not going to know that they love him about him, because some of the things that he does that are maddening, this is from watching him all his years at Wake Forest, is this is a guy who, when there's 3.5 minutes left in the game and you're up by one score, and you just need to get one crummy first down so that even if you do give them the ball back, they're scrambling, he gets that first down. Like, it's just that 3rd and 6, Sam Hartman gets it. At the end of the first half, you don't want to give them the ball back so they can kick a field goal. He winds off that 45 seconds that you need. He just does those little things really well, and he looked really good. That offense looks like it's even with freshmen like Jaden Greathouse from Austin Westlake scored touchdowns the other day. He's a true freshman, really good player. They looked really good. USC looks great on offense. I worry about their defense, though. I just don't know that they are going to muscle up enough, but maybe that's a work in progress.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same types of thoughts. Notre Dame looked good. You expected them to go and handle their business against Navy, but they did it pretty emphatically and without, breaking too much of a sweat. And certainly Sam Hartman gives them a little bit of a different swagger at quarterback than they've had in quite some time. As was pointed out constantly throughout that broadcast and just in general when people talk about that game, I mean, it's just obvious that he's a real talent back there. That was a great addition for them, and could be one of those pieces of the machine that propels them to greater lengths than they've seen lately. Although they've had many successes in recent history, it's just that's a guy that you're going, okay, like that could be a real difference maker for them. So I think that was evident on weekend number one. Not voting him number one in the Heisman. There's a lot of other players to see, but that was a big-time offseason move, and especially in this era of the transfer quarterback. Notre Dame got into that ball game, and I think they found themselves a really good player that will be a fun story to watch the rest of the year. But, yeah, I mean, they handled their business and never had too much trouble with the midshipmen. USC, I think – the offense is never going to be too much of an issue. Certainly, though, there were some issues. It being week number one, we saw a lot of sloppy football in some ways. But, Caleb Williams is going to be a star, but they're going to have to block better for him. I think he was getting touched a little bit too much. And that defense is still, a bit of a question mark. I don't think that anything's been solved over on that side. I think there's plenty of reasons to still be quite pessimistic about, Alex Grinch and just kind of what they're doing over on that side of the football. But it's week one. Don't want to overreact too much, but those were a couple of the main things heading into this kind of half weekend. Sam Hartman's Irish debut, USC and how they were going to look on both sides of the ball. And there's still some questions for the Trojans, but Notre Dame certainly has answered a big one.
I think those were two of the ones that mentioned. Zachariah Branch, who came in late in the game and took a little pass out in the flat from Caleb and then returned to kickoff, 96 yards. They're obviously explosive. But there was one other storyline in the first week of college football. Paxton sent me a text. Now, I give out my number quite a bit, and I'm okay with that because sometimes you may have won something or I don't mind doing that. And a lot of you, it's fantastic. But if you don't hear me respond, it means I'm zoned in on doing some things. But he sent me out a text having to do with this particular tweet, which came on later in the day. This is from Jeff Schwartz. 12 plays and a half the quarter is gone after one drive. Just like the NFL, congrats on the new clock rules in college football, something everyone wanted. Thanks. In other words, the game is going by very fast. You may not see many games where you're going to, back in the days when you could run 90 to 100 plays. Now, when you're playing Navy, it's kind of a little bit unique because of the offense they run that soaks out the clock too.
Well, I know we can't go over every game. I wanted to add a little bit more. San Diego State, they had to be breathing a big sigh of relief in getting the win that they did at home against Ohio, especially, given the circumstances of just kind of everything going on, opening up at Snapdragon Stadium. I think that was a bit of a anxiety thing. And then Vanderbilt Clark Lee being able to, eke out that game there at the end against Hawaii. It's a big deal for a program that's rebuilding. So I wanted to add those on as well and not just focus on the big brands. But there were others, other contests we can talk about along the way. But yeah, that was certainly, one of the things to pay attention to and see how it might change the game. And I think we've seen a very small sample size. I think people overreact to very small sample sizes probably too often, but we'll get a lot more examples here in just a few days and have a bigger pool to kind of see if this is now the new norm or if this is just going to be sample size. It's not going to be as bad as we think it is, but certainly going off of what we've seen so far, Paul, there's a team like Baylor that you could envision holding the ball for an entire quarter basically and not giving it back to you. And then we're going to probably see a lot of that this year.
And look, I'm all for that. I was very for the clock rules and speeding up the game. If it goes too fast, I'm willing to back off and say I was wrong. But you maybe have that Oppenheimer moment of what have I wrought here as a person who's in favor of this. But I do think that eventually coaches and teams adapt to those things and they'll figure them out. But I do think Nick Saban's got to be thrilled about it in the long run because he wanted the clock to kind of be a factor in the games where it wasn't anymore before. And even though he's made the adjustment, he can always adjust back. But yeah, I do think that there was, I know sounds, I'm in the minority here. I thought there was too much offense in games. I think that it was harder for games to be under control. So we'll see. But yeah, 1 week it was, especially when you can just hold the ball. It's not stopping after first downs. Those were bigger deals than you maybe even realized.
I just put 4 random games. Here are the number of plays run, and I just thought it was almost the hair on fire, but I'm not trying to get off my lawn type of guy here. 69 plays, 66 plays, 55 plays, 57 plays, 65 plays, 64 plays, 72 plays, and 54 plays. Those were the number of plays run. I don't know what the average was last year. I'm going to say it might have been that. I'm going to go back and look at a couple of those, but those were just 4 games that I picked out of Division I football or FBS football over the weekend, and the number of plays that were run. Again, don't overreact to it. And at the same time, let's see kind of how it goes. But if like Craig said, if Baylor has their running game going like they did a couple of years ago, or someone else that does, you wonder if there's a chance that you really lower the amount of opportunities in a game. We'll see the trend, but not after just 1 week.
Yeah, I think there's upside to not having to spend 4 hours on a game. I know there's also people that just want to bleed every minute out of a Saturday that they possibly can on college football, and they don't care if it's a 5.5 hour game. Like, they just want college football, period, on their TV sets. I'm a little bit in between. I don't want to have to sit at McLean Stadium for 5 hours because of constant interruptions. But I also know that part of those interruptions is not what's been changed. It's the media timeout. So, yes, the game's going to be quicker, but it's the actual game that's going to be quicker and not the all extracurricular, advertising and all those types of things. So, very small sample size. I saw some that, I guess don't need to, bleed out every minute of a Saturday. We're like, hey, it was kind of nice to just have like a 3-hour game and then move on. And then there were some that I saw that were like, yeah, there was less game and there was as many commercials. That kind of sucks. I don't like that. I want the game to last as long as possible. So definitely need to see more, but I can see the good and the bad. And I think once I get this full weekend in front of me, I'll probably have a better idea of kind of how I feel about it. But it was noticeable for sure.
Paxton did bring this up about how it may affect Vegas on the points over under on something like that. So there's just kind of a look at the weekend. Hope you enjoyed it. I know most of